Hey everyone, Tara Lynn here, and I am your host for the New Year New Hobby Challenge. Excuse me, still have that bronchitis, but promised I would get on today and introduce myself. Um, this is just kind of a fun way to learn something new. Dot art is my absolute favorite. This is what we're creating today. And I just wanted a week of opportunity to share what I love with you and see if it might be something that you're interested in, because it is something that brings a lot of joy and peace to my life. So this is a taster week for the Kaleidoscope Mandala Club, but there's absolutely no obligation, no strings attached. I just want to share what I do and what I love doing. So that's a little bit about what the group is for, and a little bit about me. I'm a full-time artist. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've got two dogs who, it's kind of dark in here, but they like to join me for my lives. And most often you'll hear them eating and slurping their water, sometimes barking to say hello. But I work as a full-time artist. I do a lot of watercolor, mixed media, and dotting is my first true love. So I'm excited to share that with you. I'm going to switch screens here, put the overhead camera on so you can see what we're working on, and let's get started. All right, everyone, I've got all of my supplies here, which I'll go over in just a second. You'll see this is what we're making today. This is called Joyful Circle. I've got this design on my sample on a black background. Today, I'm going to be working on a white background just to show you how changing the color of your background can make a big impact on your design. And they're both going to look beautiful. Feel free to use whatever color background you would like. If you haven't already, go ahead and start painting the background of your surface while I'm talking and chatting here. So go ahead and start painting. You can do a black background or whatever color that you would like. I'm going to work on white today. Again, we're going to have a giveaway at the end of the video, so stick around to find out how to enter. I've got my paint here, same colors as day one. I've got fuchsia, orange, yellow, teal, and purple. And remember, the paint is supposed to have the consistency of melted ice cream or of a milkshake. So you want it to be thin enough that it'll move easily, but you don't want it to hold shape. So you can see when I get in here and kind of mix it and drip it, it doesn't hold any shape. You can see it kind of melding together pretty easily. That is what we want. Melted ice cream is the consistency. If you are using the Decoart Americanas, as long as you give them a shake before you pour them out, they are almost perfect right from the bottle. If you have Folk Art brand, those are a little thicker. I'll add, for a container about this size, I'll add 1 drop of water. If you're using Craft Smart or Apple Barrel, those are pretty thin. I would not add any water to those. If you are using Artiste paint that comes in tubes, heavy-bodied paint, you're definitely going to want to thin that down a little bit. All right, as far as tools go, I have 12 millimeter, I have 10 millimeter, 8, and 6. I've got 2 styluses. These are called rods. They're the same on both ends. These are styluses, and they have the ball tip. So for the sizes on these, I've got 2.5 millimeters, or 3 millimeters and 2.5 millimeters, and then 1.5 millimeters and 1 millimeter. If you only have one size, it's okay. If you only have one of these, you can use the large and the small end. No big deal. I've seen lots of people getting creative with the tools that they're using in the group, and that is absolutely awesome. So you can find things around that are similar in size. So for example, my 6 millimeter tool here is about the size of an unsharpened pencil. So that's a good substitute for that. You can use things like chopsticks or drill bits or lipstick or chapstick lids. Things like that will make similar sizes, and you don't have to buy the whole set of tools. My very first set of dotting tools was crochet needles because they came in different sizes, and they were colorful rods and I could tell them apart, and that's how I started learning. I also have a pencil available so I can mark my center and we can start working this design. So that is what you need to get started today. You're going to want to find your center. So as I showed yesterday, an easy way to do this on a rectangle is to get a straight edge and just make a line corner to corner. I'm obviously doing this very roughly. Help you find your center very easily. If you have a circle, it's a little more difficult. Not too hard, but I like to, you can always measure and try to find the center that way. What I do is I cut a circle out of paper and then I fold that paper in half, fold it in half again, and cut the very tip of this little triangle wedge off. And then when you open it, you have a center right there. And that's how I find my center. So, oops, I'm gonna go ahead and mark my center here. And there you have it. So the first steps that you want to do is paint your background and then find your center. If you have not done that yet, you can go ahead and pause the video here and then come on back to me. So the next thing I'm going to talk about briefly is making your dots. I'm not going to go into depth like I did in day one. You can always reference that video. But just a reminder, when you dip your tool into the paint, you want the paint to come up over the edge of the tool. You want to have plenty on there. You'll see on the end, it kind of gives me a little drop, but it's not dripping. That's how I know my paint is a good consistency. When you're going to make your dot, you want to hold it straight up and down at a 90-degree angle and gently kiss that paper. Okay, what it's going to look like, let me fold this up because it's all wobbly. From the side, when you kiss your paper, remember, we're not stamping, so you want the paint to kind of squish out and then you pull up. So if you want to practice a few of those, go right ahead. We are also going to do a few new things today. So we are going to pull some of these circles into pins. So I'm going to show you how to do that. What you would first do is make a circle. So I've got my 6mm tool here just for practice, and I'm going to make a nice circle here. Sometimes when I'm pulling into pins, I may dip just a little more paint to make sure that I have enough. And then what you can do is use your smallest stylus, or you can use the tip of a pencil, just something really small, and you can pull this into a pin shape. So that's called a pin. Once you have a pin, you can leave it that way. Sometimes those look really cool. Or you can turn it into a teardrop shape. So I'm just using the end of this stylus to kind of change the shape of my dot there. So that's how you make a pin and a teardrop. So if you'd like to practice a few of those, you can. We're going to use the teardrops today in the design. You can also make your teardrops a lot longer. So we're going to make one that's pretty long. And so I'm going to make sure I've got enough paint on there. So you can make them longer and it changes the look. So if you'd like to stop and just practice a few of those on paper today, you can do that. If you feel confident that you can do them, I'm going to move on to the next step, which is called walking the dots. And so yesterday, each and every time we made art, or we made our dot art, we dipped and dotted, dipped and dotted. That keeps our shape the same size each and every time. But there's something called walking the dots that will help us get a graduated change in size. So they'll get smaller. And so what you would do is dip once. See, I've got plenty of paint on there. So you would dip in, and then you can continuously dot. And you see they get smaller. Now I didn't change the pressure that I was dotting at all. It's just from the difference in the amount of paint on the tool. So we can use this to make designs in different ways. We can have them go straight, or we can have them curve around a circle. And so we're going to use that technique today in our design. We've got some areas that go straight and some areas that go around the circles. Here you'll see in the center we've got some of these straight designs. You'll see I've got a little pin here. I've got pins and teardrops here. Over here I'm using those walking the dots. And then this here, when you add those around circles, are called petals. So we're going to learn and experiment with a few new things today. All right, let's get started. So here I've got my circle. I am going to mark my cardinal points north, south, east, and west again. That helps me center and work with my design. And then the first dot that I'm going to make is with my 6mm tool. My fuchsia paint is going to be my center dot. Remember to hold it straight up and down, nice and slow for the center. I'm going to make this one again just to make sure I've got plenty of paint on there. All right, then I'm going to switch to my 3mm tool, my 3mm stylus here, and we're going to make some yellow dots around this center. So I'm going to dip into my yellow paint. Remember, again, even with the styluses, you go up over the ball. I'm going to add one at my north, one at my south, one at my east, and one at my west. And then I'm going to add one centered in between each of those. So we're going to end up with 8 total. All right, next we're going to make our first pins, and we are going to do this with the purple stylus. So my purple stylus is 6mm, and we're going to use orange paint. And so what we're going to do is we are going to put one dot in between 2 of these orange dots. So we did this yesterday where we would work right up next to the paint. We're going to leave a little room today. So see how I'm spacing it out just a little bit. And I'm going to put this orange dot. It's centered in between 2 yellow dots. And then I'm going to take the smallest stylus end I have, or the tip of a pencil will work. And I'm going to pull this into a little teardrop. So you make your line to go right in between those yellow dots. And then you round off the shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip one. And then I'm going to make another one. Pull it into a pin and then round it into that teardrop shape. I'm going to skip one and then add another. And then skip one and add another. The reason why I've skipped some, because I am going to go back and fill those in, is because it helps me with my spacing. It's going to help me using this north, south, east, and west points is going to help me keep my spacing even all the way around. So now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to add, we're going to end up with 8 of these total, 1 in between each set of yellow. So I can come back through here and make another dot. And that way I know it's centered in between the 2 and I'm not working off center. Because when we have 4 cardinal points, that helps us visually, or when we're trying to center something in between 2 objects, it helps us visually versus trying to do it with a wide open space. Oops, this one is a little close. Make sure you leave plenty of room for your dot. There we go. So I've got 8 of those all the way around. Right now it looks a little bit like a flower, which is kind of fun. All right, next I'm going to choose a stylus. You want to choose one on the smaller end. So think maybe 1.5 millimeters would be a good size. And I'm going to use my fuchsia paint. And so I'm going to walk the dots in a set of 3 next to these yellow lines or yellow dots here. So in between the orange, next to the yellow, I'm going to start with my 1.5 millimeter end, and I am going to use fuchsia paint. And so it's going to go yellow, pink, dot, dot, dot. And then I'm going to turn and do the next one. Yellow, pink, dot, dot, dot. Now I'm not reloading as I'm doing the 3 dots. I load my stylus, dot, 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 and then reload. Dot, 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 and then reload. And we do that all the way around. Next, I'm going to move on to 3 millimeter teal circles, and we're going to do these all the way around, but I'm going to start by adding them at the end of my pink rose. Again, I'm going to leave a little bit of room. I don't need these to be right up against, but use your judgment as to how much room you have left in your whole design. So I'm going to leave these about a dot's length away from my fuchsia there. And so it's the 3 millimeter stylus tool, teal paint, and we're going to put 1 dot at the end of those rows of pink. Once I have 8 of those there, I'm going to add another one in between the 2 that are there next to my orange to fill in that space. It's going to make it a complete circle. So dip and dot each time to keep that size consistent. All right, next we're going to come in with some bigger dots. So I'm going to use my 10 millimeter tool and some yellow paint. And I've got rows here that come out from the center with those pink lines. That's where I'm going to put these dots. We're not going to do every row like we've been doing. We're going to only do 8 dots this time. So find a row with your pink, and we're going to add 1 yellow 10 millimeter dot. Then go to your next pink row, add another. We're going to do these all the way around, just the pink rows only. So when you are finished, you will end up with 8 of those. Next, we are going to turn these yellow dots into petals. We're going to do that by walking the dots. So I'm going to get my stylus tool with the 3 millimeter end and the 2.5 millimeter end. I always like to make my center dots on these. So I'm going to use my 3mm end and my fuchsia paint. And in the same row that we've been working with, right next to that yellow dot in the center, I'm going to make one fuchsia dot. Dip and dot all the way around. Oops. I didn't actually dip that one in paint that time. Once you have all of your centers, I'm going to flip over to the smaller end of that stylus, the 2.5mm end. So just slightly smaller. I'm going to dip into my paint and then I'm going to walk the dots. So remember, this is where we don't redip every time. And I'm going to curve that around the circle. And I just count on my first one, and however many I make, that's how many I make on all of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can fit in 6. Maybe you can fit in a different amount. But we're going to do 6 on each side, count them out, and then redip. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, redip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, redip. And you get the idea. So I'm just going all the way around. So that is the start of our petals. Once you finish those all the way around, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but with orange to add another layer to this petal. So I'm going to do my center dots with my 3mm tool first, and my orange paint. Then I flip to the smaller end, the 2.5mm, and I walk the dots. Again, I count them out because on a second layer you might be able to add another dot in each row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to try to do 7 of these in each row. Redip, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Redip, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to continue around the circle, making 7 dots and then redipping. once you go all the way around with those, you have made your very first petals with me. Next, we are going to make these long teardrops, and for that, I'm going to use my 8mm tool and my purple paint. For the placement of this, what we're going to do is we've got these rows we've been working with where the pink comes out into a row and we've got the yellow dot. We're going to go in between the yellow dots. So you're going to want to find your orange and teal and then visualize that. And that's the row that we're going to put it in. So I'm going to use purple paint, 8mm tool, make sure it's up over the edge. I'm going to leave a little bit of space. I'm going to make that dot. Remember, when we pull longer teardrops, we can add just a little more paint. And then use your smallest stylus to pull that down into a nice long shape with a pin, and then we fill out that teardrop. And these go in between each petal. Work nice and slow. We're going to add one in between all the way around. right, we are almost finished with our design at this point. What we're going to do now is we are going to walk the dots around these purple teardrops. And so I'm going to go back to my 3mm stylus. On the large end is 3mm. I'm going to add a center dot on the outside of my purple teardrop. Dip and dot each time. Then I'm going to switch to the small side, 2.5mm, and I'm going to walk the dots around. And so again, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm going to do 4 on each side. I don't want to, for this one, and this is my personal preference, I don't want to go down into that line. I kind of want to keep it a circular shape. So on each side, I'm going to do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You could always try to go down into that teardrop shape if you wanted to experiment and see what that looks like. That's up to you. Do 4, redip, and do 4 more, redip, 1, 2, 3, 4, redip, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last thing I'm going to do today is top dots. Now remember, you want your paint to be slightly dry before you do top dots so you don't mess up the dots underneath. Where I'm going to place mine, I am okay to do that. I can kind of look and see that they're somewhat dry. My paint is shiny when it's wet, so I can tell what's got a film on the surface and what does not. Top dots are a great way to make a project your own, so I like to encourage anyone who follows me to make their own top dots, choose the colors, choose the size, experiment a little bit, and just have some fun and play with it. But I'll tell you what I did for my sample. In the very center, on top of my pink dot, I used my 3mm tool and added a purple dot right in the center. Then on these large yellow petals, I added a 6mm dot, and I alternated colors between teal and magenta. So I'm just going to pick a row to start with and do magenta in every other one. Oops. And then in those yellow dots in the same row that I didn't do a dot, I'm going to come back and do teal. Be careful when you're doing top dots not to put your hand in wet paint on your design because you will wreck it. So that is another good reason to wait till everything is dry. So just something to be cautious of. And that is the joyful circle design. And as I said, it looks very different from a black background to a white background. These are the exact same colors, but just changing up that background a little bit makes the design look so different. So I'm super excited to see what you create with this pattern, and I promise to give away for today. And so what I want you to do is, after you create your design, snap a picture of it, post it in the group, and the giveaway will be for a free set of dotting tools. So if you are not using dotting tools or would like to try the set that I have here, post your picture, put #tools, and I will enter you for the giveaway. I will pick the winner Wednesday when I go live for the new design. So that is the giveaway for today. I can't wait to see what you make. Go ahead and post it in the group, and I will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.